I don't even know if I'm in focus because it's so bright out, but today's video I wanted to talk about the S1 and the S1R from Panasonic. Right now I'm recording this on my GH5, got a Metabone Speedbooster on it, and well, I'm going to take this conversation inside my car because it's kind of freezing outside. Give me a second.
Behind you with like the clouds, the sky and everything, and still be able to see.
We've got the Rode video mic. Here we go.
M50. What do you guys think?
Let's have a conversation. Yeah, it obviously appears that I'm inside from the cold, and that's definitely for a reason. But that reason is I didn't know how to talk about the S1 and the S1R. And looking up things online and how I feel about it, and even watching this t-shirt inspired from Camera Conspiracies, you know, and being displeased with the S1 or Panasonic's meeting where basically they decide, okay, let's come up with a perfect camera. Because I honestly think in Camera Conspiracies, he was onto something. Let's create the perfect camera, full frame. Yes, let's make it a full frame, but no flippy screen. Why? Why not give a flippy screen? The camera is pretty heavy. You have the GH5, which was almost the perfect camera. Now, let's go back to a couple years ago, right before the GH5 came out and it was announced. I was skeptical about the autofocus, which is fine. I'm actually using the GH5 to record now, and I've got it on manual because autofocus just doesn't work for me. So it's fine to have it on manual. I've got the flippy screen so I could adjust, but that's, you know, that's a compromise that I had to make, but it had so many advantages, which is why I wanted the camera. Sure, it's got a micro 4/3 sensor, which is smaller than a full frame, but when you put a speed booster on it, you actually get a better and shallower depth of field than you can with the 5D Mark IV, and it's cropped 4K. So in my sense, it was almost, in my opinion, it was almost an advantage. 4K 60, you get 4K 30 at 10-bit 422 internal, 4K 60 out. And the crop factor is only 1.2 because of the speed booster. I was like, this is the camera for me. Awesome. Now, yes, I was skeptical on the autofocus, which it was as suspected. And I'm not a fan of Panasonic's colors. And when especially white balancing using the GH5 is a bit more difficult for me. Still possible, and the footage looks great, but difficult for me. Like, I'm in this room, and as I'm recording, I'm looking at the screen, and I can tell I'm in the shot, but there's like a greenish hue, and no matter how much I white balanced it before, adjusting in post, that greenish hue is like, ugh, can't get rid of it. Anyway, back to the subject. GH5 was good enough for me to want to get. Now, the S1 was a camera, Panasonic S1, was like, okay, this is the full frame version of the GH5. I would be ready to just pretty much sell my GH5 to get the S1. Sony hasn't been able to get me because Sony didn't have a flip screen and Sony didn't have 60p in 4K. So I'm like, there's really no advantage. It's got full frame 4K, which is something that's hard to come by, but still I can work around it. Full frame 4K isn't a deal breaker for me. Obviously, the bigger the sensor and the closer to full frame is something that I wanted, which is why the GH5 didn't do a bad job after the speed booster. But then we have the fact that the 4K 60 in the S1, either you got one of a couple of issues with it. You've got the fact that if you do the full sensor, you have line skipping. So it is possible to record full sensor 4K, but then you have line skipping, which makes the footage nowhere near as good as it can possibly be. Or you've got cropped in 4K, which defeats the purpose, and it's APS-C size, which means You can't get as a shallow depth of field with your lenses as you can with the Micro Four Thirds because of the speed booster, unless you have Metabones design a speed booster just for that specific setting on the camera, which to me is unfortunate. You can do 4K 60p with an update in 10-bit 422 external via HDMI, but you could already do that with the GH5. I'm like, okay, no flip screen, time limit when it comes to 4K 60 because of possible overheating issues. Basically, Panasonic's giving me a camera that I don't need. Even if I was to choose between the GH5 or the S1, I still am more of a fan of the GH5. Unless the S1 has some firmware updates that fixes all of these issues, which I don't believe that's going to happen. The body's actually pretty big because probably has to dissipate a lot of the heat that you get off the 4K 60. At least they're trying. I mean, that's more than I could say for any other manufacturer when it comes to full frame 4K 60p. But not enough. It's close, but not enough. And granted, other camera manufacturers are not even coming close to those settings when it comes to mirrorless 4K 60p video. I've got the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, which gives me 4K 60, but of course that's a crop sensor as well. And it's pretty inexpensive, but you'd think by now they would have figured it out on how to do 4K 60 without making your camera explode. I don't know. Maybe they did it on purpose. That perfect camera, which it could have been so close with the S1, it escapes us. And don't even get me started on the fact that they're still using contrast detect autofocus. That's just sad. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Like, share, and you can make my day if you subscribe to Days of Magnus. I'm out. I felt I at least had to talk about the S1 for a little bit since everyone's been talking about it. And I really not excited. Anyway, see you later.